Is there enough food on the USS Lincoln?
Yeah, it is. That was a CNN fake report. The Lincoln has been out there for a period of time, good period of time. But over the years, we've had them out there much longer. I was at a group meeting, and an Admiral came up to see me over the weekend. And it was at a big group, and he happened to be an Admiral retired. He said, I've been on ships that are out there much longer than that, sir. And I know people on the Lincoln, they say it's beautifully maintained and beautifully taken care of.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. We are in uncharted waters. Sometimes I feel like America is the USS Abraham Lincoln on a grueling deployment with leadership that could care less. Look at all the fake gold around Donald Trump. He's one step away from turning the Oval Office into a throne room. And then think about his total dismissiveness of the real-world conditions aboard the Lincoln because of a war he started and can't figure out how to end. Imagine being a sailor on that ship, or being any one of our forward deployed service members and hearing this.
That ship is moving right now. Very shortly, and it's being replaced with another very similar ship. Not even long enough. Thank you, everybody.
I don't know if you got that. He said, no, they're not, when asked about family members who are concerned about their loved ones. And then when asked if the deployment had gone on too long, it's, by the way, the longest in modern history of a U.S. warship without a port call, his answer was not nearly long enough. As I've said here before, sailors are used to tough conditions. That's not really what this is about. What we are seeing here is a collapse of their faith in their leaders, especially the ones like Donald Trump dismissing the hardships they are being asked to endure. I asked Eileen Laubacher to join me to talk about all this. She's a retired Navy Rear Admiral who served as a senior director on the National Security Council, and she's now running as the Democratic nominee in Colorado's 4th Congressional District against Lauren Boebert. One more thing. I'm going to be offline for a bit. I will try to provide updates over Substack if I'm able. I do have a favor to ask. Please consider supporting the 34th Marine Brigade in Ukraine. They've had my back every time I've been there. The link to help out is below. Thanks so much. Here's me and Admiral Eileen Laubacher. Eileen, Admiral Laubacher, thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to get you on, and I know you just had a great conversation with my colleague Joe over at Meidas Defense, but the treatment of the sailors aboard the USS Lincoln, and look, I'm not talking about the harshness of life at sea. We've all been there. I'm wearing the shirt for a reason. Life deployed, especially underway, and I was a land-based guy, so I had it easy. It can get rough. That's not really what the sailors are complaining about. They're complaining about a loss of faith in leadership. That's what we need to read between the lines when we're seeing the families worried about their loved ones, when we're seeing the sailors themselves asking what the mission is. This is a breakdown in confidence in the leadership and the mission, not just a lament about old food and rotten vegetables arriving to the ship late. Can you illuminate this for us?
Yeah. So listen, I would say that I'd say that it takes a lot for military people to complain. You know, I mean, to each other, of course, we kvetch all the time, right? But what I think at heart is a huge part of the problem is a lack of real idea of mission and purpose of what the sailors are doing. I mean, these sailors on board the Lincoln are doing amazing things. I mean, they are working so hard. And as you and I both know and agree, we have the finest military in the world. Our sailors are tough and resilient, and their families are tough and resilient. But we have all deployed away from our families, and we know how it is. I mean, I was a military brat too, so I remember my dad's deployments, and I remember the countdown, and I remember thinking about the thing that he had missed and that he was going to be home again. And when I deployed to Afghanistan, I told my kids, "Hey, I'm gone for a year. The good news is I'll miss one of every holiday. Every holiday we get through, the upside is I'll be home for that next holiday." And our families count on that. And it is not to say that these extensions don't happen. They do. But when they happen, they are dispiriting. And when they happen, It needs a clear message as to what the purpose is of the extension and why we're doing the things that we're doing, and a real belief in the idea that our leadership knows how we're feeling and how we're suffering, and the strain on people's mental health and the mental health of the families is so serious. And the dismissive tone when people say, that we need people to be tougher, or that this deployment actually isn't going to be long enough, that hurts, because that means that we're not recognizing the genuine sacrifices that people are making. Battle conditions are battle conditions. Like, Afghanistan was no picnic with regard to the way that we lived and the water that we showered in and all of those kinds of challenges we accept as normal. But it's when it is getting increasingly worse and there seems to be no acknowledgement of the sacrifice that we're making and the strain that puts on individuals. It's just too much. And I was heartened by Admiral Cooper's visit to the ship. And I think that was a demonstration of real care for our sailors and telling them that they're going to be relieved and that they're coming home. That's really important. But I feel that we see way too many people in Congress not holding the administration responsible for making sure that we are deploying people and conducting something that is righteous and just. And this is an unnecessary war, and we were asking unnecessary sacrifices, and we were putting people under unnecessary strain. And for me, that's frustrating, because Lauren Boebert said she was against this war, and she's voted 4 times to continue it. And that is exactly where our people are being let down.
Hey, it's Ken. Between the show, the travel, and honestly, just trying to keep everything on track, my routine took a hit these past couple months. And even when things start to slow down a little, the obligations don't. Dinner still has to happen. So I've been leaning on Factor to get back to eating real food without adding one more thing to my plate, literally. Factor makes chef-crafted, dietitian-designed, ready-to-eat meals, so you don't have to choose between real food and convenience. Every Factor meal is built around what supports a healthier lifestyle and nothing that doesn't. Factor has banned over 175 ingredients that none of us should be eating. And these meals are ready in 2 minutes. No prep, no cleanup. So on the days your schedule is completely out of control, eating well is still doable. I've been working through the new menu the past few weeks. The salmon burgers are on regular rotation for me now. It's made eating well feel easy again instead of one more thing to manage. Let's eat real. Head to factormeals.com/thekenshow50off and use code thekenshow50off to get 50% off and 1 free breakfast item per box for a year while supplies last until October 31st, 2026. That's code thekenshow50off at factormeals.com. thekenshow50off at factormeals.com. See website for more details. It's Ken with a quick break. I'm recording this as I am about to head back to Ukraine. I will share more details about that reporting trip soon, but I would like to make one more request for support for the 34th Marine Brigade. These men and women are true heroes. They're a big part of why I keep going back to Ukraine, and they're also why I make it home. If you saw Drone Hunters of Kherson, that's the 34th at work defending their city against relentless Russian drone attacks. If you're able to help out, we're raising for another rescue boat and motor. The last one has already saved lives. The link to donate is below. If you've ever wondered how you can make a difference for those on the front lines, this is it. Thanks so much. On the part of the administration, the civilian leadership, not Admiral Cooper, not the CO, not the officers tasked with getting this ship through this deployment, but on the part of Hegseth and Trump and the civilian leadership, it's not just a lack of acknowledgement of the sacrifices these sailors and their families are making, it's the disparagement of them. It's calling 100%. The reports fake news. Or in the case of Trump, you alluded to this, but it's basically a direct quote. When asked if the deployment was too long, he said, no, not nearly long enough. And that does way more to damage morale than a lack of sleep or bad food or an extended deployment,
100%.
Thinking that your leaders not only don't know, but don't care about what you are enduring. I've seen that, and that is devastating to a unit.
Yeah. And we've all seen examples of good leadership, right? Of presidents who come to visit us in war zones, of people who, secretaries of defense who have gone through the things that we have gone through, of understanding the pain that people are feeling and the challenges that people are facing, and making us feel like it has purpose and meaning and a duration that we can understand. But the war is on, the war is off. We're about a ceasefire, we don't have a ceasefire. Those are things that make it increasingly difficult for sailors and their families and for Marines and their families to stay the course, which is what we need them to do.
And it only adds to this sense of bewilderment among those in the military, those deployed, when they see things like the president demanding that aircraft carriers be redesigned to fit his image of what a carrier should look and smell and feel like. As a former admiral, if you're in charge of the design and development of this new generation of carriers, and you're basically ordered via tweet. I know it's now come down more formally, but you're ordered via social media to redesign the next class of warships based on the whim of the president. How do you respond to that? And if you're a sailor on board ship, how do you think about serving in a military led by a commander-in-chief who acts in this undisciplined of a manner?
I think, I would say I think Mark Kelly said it pretty well when he talked about the fact that, he's flown hundreds of times off of carriers, and he's an aeronautical engineer, and he was a test pilot, and no part of him would overrule how aircraft carriers are designed. I think what we have, it just speaks to an overarching lack of seriousness, right? And I see that with the Congresswoman that I'm facing, is that we need people who are serious about this business, because this is a business that costs lives. I think for both of us, not only have we lost friends in war and conflict, but the day-to-day business that our military does is inherently dangerous and serious. And decisions about how our aircraft carriers work and function are things that are best left for experts, and not something that anyone should be deciding on a whim. And, we have processes for this very reason, and we should be engaging with seriousness when we talk about things like how our planes fly and how our carriers are designed, and how battleships look, or if battleships are even appropriate for this century. But those are the kinds of things that ought not be decided by politicians, frankly, right? This is exactly the things that are wrong right now, is that we need people we need an appreciation for experts and expertise, and we need to understand who the experts are with regards to determining what kind of ships and aircraft we have and how our aircraft carriers work and function. And that this is serious business that means people's lives. This is not notional. It's not performative. The United States military is the opposite of all of that. These are serious professionals who are doing a dangerous job every single day, and I am grateful for them every single day. And we should not be making decisions willy-nilly based on anyone's whims. We should make decisions based on the future threat and what it is that we're facing, and technological advances and things that make things safer and better. We should always be looking forward and not looking back to make things from some time that we idealize. That's not the way to run the best military in the world.
That was an excerpt of my conversation with Eileen Laubacher. For the full interview, check out my Substack, and please consider a donation to the 34th Marine Brigade in Ukraine. That link is below. Thank you, as always. See you soon.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filikowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.